welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Sarah Jane Adventure episode, Warriors of the Kudlak. This is the third story in its traditional format, and the fourth story overall. Now, this one is mainly remembered for being the one that was inspired by laser tag. For those of you who don't know, laser tag is a game in which you have you're strapped up to this device and you have a gun with a laser on it, and you've got to shoot the laser on the other people's tag. Laser tag, it's in the name. This is something which, as a kid, I did a lot as a kid, and it was like, it was a really fun experience, playing laser tag. But it always had that the extreme kind of corniness about it, which a lot of people kind of put off a lot of people. And it is one of those things where a lot of studios, a lot of companies, they're like, right, what are the kids into these days? Laser tag. Let's make a story about laser tag. And that's essentially what they've done here. This would be Phil Gladwin's only story that he had written for the Sarah Jane Adventures. Maybe that's because the story was heavily panned when it came out. A lot of people, even younger people, considered this the Love and Monsters of the Sarah Jane Adventures. They found it incredibly weak, incredibly dull, and is considered by many to be Sarah Jane Adventures' worst story. Does it really deserve that title? Well, we'll find out as we get into it. So, this is the cover from the official BBC Series 1 box set. And because it's the first story on the discs, it seems like each story is on 2 discs. I got to print it off my old DVD cover. So, here is the story. I can't remember. This is Aquatine's 64 DVD cover. I printed that out. Looks really cool. You got Kudlak pointing the gun at the camera there. Really cool. You've got the spine, if anyone's interested. Very nice, with Sarah Jane there. And the back. I have forgotten to put down this DVD also contains the next story, which I believe is Whatever Happened to Sarah Jane. So, yeah. So there you go, that's the covers and all that. So, shall we get onto the story at hand? Our story basically kicks off on this mystery as this kid starts playing laser tag, and it's all hip and cool and rad. And Ugly, all of a sudden, he gets locked in this room and seemingly is teleported, whilst a creature that's looking at the events on a monitor witnesses this and is calling up to his empress, his superior. And so he's talking to this empress character who demands for him to deliver more children, to have more soldiers for their work. And that basically kicks off the narrative, and that leads into the credit scenes, which then we get started in the story. We straight away see Sarah Jane interacting with the mother. She is already invested in this plot and stuff. Maybe they did that because they couldn't think of a reason why Sarah Jane would get involved in this situation. But someone is missing, and it has nothing to do with aliens as far as she knows yet. Now, what this story does is kind of interesting. It starts right off the bat by separating the crew in 2 groups. You have Luke and Clyde, and you have Sarah Jane and Maria. And if you remember from my previous videos, you can easily tell that was a great decision, with each of these pairings working well off each other, and the relationships, although character-wise here, they don't have much to say or do. I mean, this is actually one of the few stories, I think this is the only story in Series 1 where Maria's family do not appear whatsoever. Apart from a few mentions here and there, Maria's family life isn't a part of this story in any way, shape or form, which kind of means Maria just takes a companion role to Sarah Jane. That's nothing wrong with that, but it means that Maria is much less interesting character than she is in other stories in Series 1. We essentially learn that this boy that has gone missing that we saw at the start of the episode and the one that Sarah Jane is investigating the boy is actually from Luke's and Clive's and Maria's school. And it turns out that Luke, trying to learn humour and trying to get people to like him, he started making jokes on this kid about him being a colonel, I believe they call him, the captain or the colonel, and essentially picking on him. But Luke, being very, very, very naive, didn't even realise that that he was making humour at the expense of an individual, citing that, like, what if he ran out because of Luke? Because he didn't think, he was just wanted to make people laugh, to people like him, and the only way he knew how is to basically unintentionally pick on this other person, seemingly. And that is, that seems like a great, interesting storyline to go with Luke. You know, he's very socially unacceptable in the society that he lives in. He was born only a few weeks ago at this point. He doesn't understand normal human society and is learning all the way. There's a scene in which Luke is talking to Maria about going shopping for bags, and Luke's just like, I don't understand. And Maria's just like, don't worry, you're a boy, you're not supposed to understand. And he also gets instantly interested in this Combat 3000, the new laser tag game, ran by the face by a Mr. Kudlak and a Mark Grantham. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Grantham is essentially one of the main villains in this story. He essentially kidnaps children. I say kidnaps, he gets kids invited into this laser tag game, basically trying to find the best soldiers in a way, and then basically giving them to the alien race. Now, Grantham is played by Chuck Substain, and he is so clearly enjoying this role. He is having so much fun being the villain of this narrative. He's not as corny and as silly as Revenge of the Slothenes, own Slothene, but he's having a great blast here. He's having a lot of fun, and you can just clearly see he's owning that goddamn role. And you're probably thinking, as I'm talking about this right now, what's there to hate? We seem to have a great character moment for Luke and for him to learn stuff. We have an interesting villain, well, it's interesting in terms of a performance, and Maria and all the team-ins are particularly well handled here. Well, it all goes downhill when the laser tag comes involved. When the story starts revolving around the laser tag, it becomes corny, but in a, oh god, really? Are we actually doing a laser tag episode of Sarah Jane Adventures? Like, it's clearly somebody trying to think, what do the kids like these days attitude, if you get me. And you've got these, like, this voiceover, it's like, welcome to the year 3000, you future soldiers, you will be fighting, you will be dying in the cause. And when Mark Grantham, basically, he's the one who does, like, the rules and stuff, and even he, like, gets involved as, like, you're all soldiers from the year, like, 3000 and blah, blah, blah. I've played laser tag. I used to play laser tag as a kid. They were never like this. It was always just right, here's the safety. Don't hit anybody with the gun physically. Just have fun. If you've got epileptic seizures and stuff, don't take part. And all stuff like that. It was never like this. And it makes this story feel really corny in a very unintentionally way, if that makes a sense. And I think the main issue this story has is villain. In part one, we get introduced to Kudlak, the main villain, this bug-like entity. You can actually see him on the cover here. And something about this character just does not work. The voice he was given this and this design, like he's got a bug-like face. The face seems alright. If he just had the face on its own, it's fine. But they kind of give him this kind of this red war dressing gown thing. It's not a dress, it's like a war jacket like Captain Jack, but he's got to constantly button it up, which kind of makes it look like a dressing gown, which is just hilarious. And the fact that really this character, in terms of alien personality, just really goes, my mistress! That was a really good impression. That, it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't click with the overall feeling. It also, we have a lot of scenes in which he has some really cliched dialogue. He's just not interested in any way, shape or form. He is unthreatening and really comes off as a children's show villain. But it's a children's show, so can you get mad at it? Can you be angry at it? I don't know, but I know that this villain, in terms of what we've had so far in Sarah Jane, is clearly the weakest by far. And, Sarah Jane is a kids show, but it's one of the best kids shows out there, and it has some great ideas, some great people working behind the scenes. This prop, this design, then the performance just seems lazy. It just feels uninspired and lazy and just uninteresting. Now, I do like how in part one, it's all about, we as an audience viewers get the sense that, we know that Combat 3000 is this dangerous mask for the villain's secret plans and stuff, whilst Luke and Clive are getting involved, and Luke is clearly proven himself because he's a really smart kid who is actually really good at the game. Again, this is a cliche in loads of stories with Laser Tag, where it's basically when you hear the story Laser Tag in a science fiction show like this, you know exactly where it's gonna go. But and one of the cliches, it's weird to say Laser Tag stories. They are very, very few, but when they do, they all have this similar plot line where they have the main character and he's just so good at laser tag, and the villains are like, ha, we can use him, let's kidnap him and put him into our army because laser tag is secretly training kids to become soldiers. What a dumb plan. What an absolute dumb plan. It's just, that's just so stupid. I can't really say anything more about that. What I liked, I do like how, as a viewer, we know that this place is full of evil and stuff, and Sarah Jane and Maria are working it out, but Luke and Clive had no idea, and slowly, when they're working into the narrative, we know that they are getting more and more in danger, but the characters don't. And and the cliffhanger is actually Luke and Clive being teleported into Kudlak's ship, as Kudlak basically finds Sarah Jane and Maria, who have infiltrated Combat 3000's offices and seen the cameras and stuff. and get introduced to Kudlak himself as he's like, ah! And you might have noticed something. The first half of the first episode was taking itself kind of seriously. We had kids going missing, and you had a parent like basically crying to Sarah Jane at one point, basically taking this story kind of more serious than the idea really deserves. You've also got Luke learning that sometimes being funny, being like the smartest one in the room, isn't always a privilege in a sense, as he was unintentionally bullying another character, and he was benefiting from it, and now he can see that it's wrong, and he kind of feels guilty by it, and he doesn't want to be interacting at the start of it, because he's worried that he will get people hurt. And Clive is like, right, you can ask me anything, and Clive is like, you can, what's the point of games? And then that's how we get into the narrative. But then as soon as we get into the second half of the first episode, that completely disappears in terms of what the story is interested in. As soon as we go to the second half, as soon as we get into the laser tag segments, and the story mainly focuses on that, the story is not interested in Luke's his dilemma here, and Sarah Jane's mission of the missing children becomes a lot less intertwined with the narrative, and is more about her just discovering some sort of alien teleportation system. And the mother only has a scene right at the start of part 1 and right at the end of part 2. And the idea that so many parents have missed their children because of alien intervention is just not a part of the story. It's not a part of the narrative, and that is a complete bummer. And I feel like I think a lot of people might overestimate this story for its first half, because it's got all these plot lines, it's got these ideas, and it makes you think like it's going to do something with them. It's going to be this interesting character piece with Luke, or it's going to be this commentary of how in the Doctor Who universe people get kidnapped by children and stuff like that. Something actually very similar to Adrift, the last vlog episode that we did, which was on the Torchwood episode. In fact, speaking of Torchwood's episode Adrift and this, they are very similar. Sarah Jane starts off investigating the situation thanks to a kid going missing, and discovers there are a lot more kids going missing due to very similar events. It's strange how I picked two stories. I lined it up that two of these stories back to back have the same kind of plot in that regard, but this story does nothing with it. And a lot of people might argue, yeah, but it's just for kids. I'm sorry, but especially later down the line, children's shows aren't that dumb. Like, the story was tackling those ideas. It was interesting. Maybe the children going missing might have been a bit too dark for the Sarah Jane Adventures. I understand that. I do kind of understand why they dropped that. But the Luke and his dilemma here, that almost was really interested and really needed a dynamic, and could have easily be done in a Sarah Jane Adventures. That's why the Sarah Jane Adventures was invented, is so that kids can learn this kind of stuff. Because these stories are to teach kids morals. Like, stories are basically teaching us morals and putting us in other people's shoes. And so we could have had Luke basically learning all this stuff as the kid audiences could understand his point of view, and understand that laughing at the expense of someone else isn't a good thing. And sometimes that does just happen. You just gotta try not to do it more often and just get on with your life. But no, as soon as the laser tags comes in, it just kind of stops. In part 2, which I think by far is easily the weakest Sarah Jane Adventure episode I've seen. It's fluff. There's nothing interesting going on. Sarah Jane and Maria escape Kudlak somehow, even though they were completely cornered in the cliffhanger. Luke and Clive basically find the rest of the missing children at Combat 3000, or at least a handful of them have been kidnapped and been taken to his ship. And it turns out that they are basically they've been kidnapped and basically getting ready for war. They've been put in these crates like animals. It's important to note that in the original script for this story, the idea was that Kudlak was actually going to make a zoo where people can look at human children. But that was changed to a war, the Ghost War between Kudlak's people and another race, which do get named, but I can't remember what they are. It's not really important to the narrative. But we essentially get this plot of these kids basically doing the exact same thing, only in a much more real environment as they go and getting chased around by these soldiers of Kudlak, as Kudlak is basically talking to his empress. Now, they try and give him a little bit of character here. He is a warrior, and he does want peace, and he does want the war to end. But his empress is like, no, you must produce more children, more children. Just the villain is just going, no, we need more children for the war effort. That was really stupid. But the idea of trying to give Kudlak an actual character here does kind of work. It does elevate him a little bit more than he was in part one. But that's the only thing I can really say about it. The Empress character we only see through a monitor, and she's just calling about Kudlak's ship. We got this great moment then of Luke, Clive, and a bunch of kids looking out the window and seeing Earth. And Sarah Jane and Maria, they actually capture Grantham and convince him to help them, to teleport them onto the ship so they can save Luke and Clive. And they do that. They just do it as just part of the plot. And they get captured, and the kids get captured, and they all culminated into this one scene where it's like the Empress character is just like, no, you must kill them all. And then Luke is like, oh wait, there's this other thing that, because he's a genius, he has connected his phone to the alien computer system where he's learned something. But it turns out the war that Kudlak was fighting had finished 10 years ago. And it turns out that the Empress was actually building up an army for herself. And that Kudlak is like basically betrayed this. It's like, no, you're lying. This can't be true. And then he comes face to face with it. But in this scene, there's also another twist, which is just so stupid. It's like, every time I watch it, I'm just like, why? You could have easily edited that out. It turns out that the Empress in the video might not even be the actual Empress. It turns out that this is actually a computer that does not understand peace. It was not built for peace. So it was basically building up Kudlak's idea of war and keeping him in the line of, right, we're in war, send more soldiers. But it didn't understand peace, and so it could not complement. And it didn't want to die. It didn't want to. It did not compute peace, so it just kept going for 10 years. And Kudlak's like, okay, you can go. And he basically is like to Sarah Jane, it's like, you can execute me. I'm ashamed. And Sarah Jane's just like, you. On Earth, we don't kill the bad guys. We spare people. We let them live better lives. What about Maria in Revenge of the Slovene? I mean, sure, Sarah Jane wasn't there, but it is kind of funny how we got one story where it's like Yes, we do not kill. We never kill. Even our bad guys we hate, we never kill. And then in about 2 or 3 episodes ago, we had Maria just flat out murdering a Slovene. Just find that pretty funny. And then Kudlak basically leaves, stating that I'm going to find the rest of the children and I have been capturing for 10 years. 10 years! And the story kind of ends on a very happy note there as Sarah Jane returns the boy who was she was investigating at the earlier on in the episode to her mother. And there you go. That's Warrior of Kudlak. Overall, it's an easy pass. A lot of people seem to really hate this story. But I just, honestly to God, I just can't get that invested in it. It's just dull. It's uninteresting, it's uninspired. The story feels like, for the most part, of what are kids interested into these days? I'm surprised they didn't actually put dinosaurs in this as well. Actually, that would have been pretty cool. But there are some small ideas in there. Do you know how some stories are great but you have nitpicks? Think of this story in reverse. It's a lot of bad stuff, but there's some really great little moments here and there. What's an opposite of a nitpick? I don't know if there's a term for that, but we got this great start at the moment with Luke and his emotions. I like the pairings. Kudlak does have some interesting moments in part 2 when he's just talking about peace, even though the dialogue and the design of the alien and just the overall setting up of the cameras. I did mention Charlie Martin's directing in this, and it's probably for the best that it doesn't, let's be honest. He would later go on to direct the series finale, and I believe that's the only stories, the only 2 stories he did. But I don't think this was actually a really good place to start off with his work if you're interested in Charlie Martin's work on Doctor Who, or at least in the Sarah Jane Adventures. And yeah, it's getting really dark in here. It's really bizarre. But anyway, that's Warrior of the Kudlak. Overall, it's just not interesting. It's just kind of forgettable, in a way. Oh well. So join me next time when the Doctor takes Donna to the biggest library in the universe as they come face to face with killer shadows and a mysterious woman as the Doctor gets introduced to Professor River Song. And I'll see you next time for The Silence of the Library and Forest of the Dead. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!